Noah whimpered softly, his weak struggles fading to twitches. His body went limp under the weight as resignation seeped in. Tate's caress turned firmer. He gripped a fistful of hair, tilting Noah's head back to expose the pale column of his throat without leaning in to claim it. Poor Noah didn't yet understand how far Tate's fear could push him, or how heavy that kind of desperation could become. He didn't know what might happen if Tate were left alone with his dark thoughts, but Tate did, and the idea of facing them by himself felt like something he simply couldn't survive. "I love you, cunt," Tate said. The words tumbled out thick with twisted affection, love warped by platonic jealousy. It was a bond that burned hotter than any flame. His eyes locked onto Noah's wide ones, stormy blue meeting desperate hazel. He released the hair to trail his fingers down Noah's jawline, tracing the sharp edge without pressure. Noah's breath hitched. His skinny frame quivered, narrow ribs visible through the tatters of his shirt as he panted. Tate shifted his hips slightly, pressing his bulk down to emphasize the control, feeling the heat of Noah's body yield beneath him. "I loved you so much, I made your blonde ass my beneficiary and heir 5 years ago," Tate continued, voice rough with emotion, his caressing hand now cupping the back of Noah's neck, thumb rubbing circles into the tense muscle there. Noah's eyes flickered, a mix of fear and confusion flashing across his face, but he didn't speak, couldn't, with Tate's presence smothering any protest. "You leaving me isn't happening." Tate's other hand tightened around Noah's wrists, a reminder of the chains he forged with his own strength while his body molded closer, chest to chest, the cold dread of abandonment twisting in his gut like a knife. He leaned his forehead against Noah's, not kissing, just sharing the heated space, breaths mingling in the scant inches between. "My limbs, chest, and cock get cold as an ice cube when you rebel and sleep away from me." The confession spilled out raw, Tate's voice cracking on the vulnerability hidden in the dominance. His hand stroked Noah's hair again, petting in long, soothing pulls that belied the jealousy simmering underneath. "My body needs yours to sleep." Noah's weak form stilled completely now, the fight drained from his narrow muscles, leaving only the subtle rise and fall of his breathing sync to Tate's heavier rhythm. Tate held him there, unmovable, the room quiet save for their shared pants fading into the night, his possession etched into every inch of space between them. Tate's weight pressed down on Noah's slender frame, his broad shoulders casting a shadow over the smaller man's narrow chest as they lay tangled on the bed. The air hung heavy with Tate's frustration, his breath coming in hot bursts against Noah's skin. Noah's weak arms pushed feebly at Tate's sides, but it was like shoving against a wall, unyielding muscle and bone that refused to budge. Tate's eyes narrowed, stormy with the news that clawed at his insides. His father had picked some girl for him to marry in a year. It was the blue way, the expectation drilled into every stud of the family: take a wife, breed her relentlessly, pump cum into her until kids came spilling out to carry on the line. But the thought twisted Tate's gut like a knife, not from duty, but from the threat it posed to everything he held close. Noah gazed up, his blue eyes wide and uncertain, meeting Tate's scowl that deepened the lines around his mouth. Tate's jaw clenched, teeth grinding as he hovered there, his face inches from Noah's, close enough that Noah could feel the warmth radiating off Tate's skin, smell the faint salt of his sweat. "My father had introduced me to 27 different women in the year after I graduated from Brown. Every few weeks, there seemed to be another dinner, another family friend, another perfect match he was certain I'd fall in love with. He never gave up. To him, marriage wasn't just about happiness, it was about duty. My mother wanted me to marry too, though she was gentler about it. She never pressured me the way my father did. Instead, she'd smile wistfully whenever the subject came up and say that she hoped I'd find someone who made me happy. I understood why they felt that way. I was the last branch of the Blue family. When my parents were gone, there would be no one left after me. No children running through the halls of the family home. No future generation carrying our name. If I had never had children, the Blue family would end with me. That thought weighed on me more than I liked to admit. It wasn't just my future I carried on my shoulders. It felt like I was carrying the past as well, every sacrifice, every generation, every hope that had led to me. Sometimes I wondered whether I was failing my family simply by living the life that felt true to me. Other times, I reminded myself that a family isn't measured only by the people who come after us. It's also measured by the love we give while we're here. Still, whenever my father mentioned another woman he wanted me to meet, I could see the hope in his eyes. It wasn't really about the woman. It was about the future he was afraid would disappear with me. I could already imagine the conversation I'd have to have with Noah if I accepted one of those women's proposals. The thought alone made my chest tighten. I'd have to tell the poor blonde that things couldn't stay the way they'd always been. He'd have to leave my room, leave my bed, and find somewhere else to sleep while I shared a life with my wife. The idea hollowed me out. I didn't want that. I didn't want to build a marriage simply because I was the last branch of the Blue family tree. I didn't want to bring children into the world just to keep a surname alive. Yet every time my father introduced me to another woman, I felt the weight of generations pressing down on my shoulders, reminding me that if I died without children, the Blue family would end with me. Duty told me one thing. My heart kept whispering another. Sleeping beside Noah had always seemed pointless, or at least, that's how people from my world would have described it. Among wealthy families like mine, marriage was about legacy. It was about heirs, inheritance, and carrying a family name into another generation. If the person sharing your bed couldn't give you children, people would quietly ask the same question. What was the point? Two men sharing a bed, even if nothing romantic or physical ever happened, made no sense to them. If there were no possibility of a wife, no children, no legitimate heirs, then the other person was seen as unnecessary, someone who served no purpose in the future they imagined. I hated that way of thinking. Because when I looked at Noah, I didn't see someone who was pointless. I saw the person who had been beside me for most of my life, the one whose quiet presence had made every house feel like home. Yet no matter how much he meant to me, I couldn't escape the voice I'd grown up with, the one that insisted duty mattered more than affection and legacy mattered more than companionship. The moment Noah heard that Tate was expected to marry, his mind seemed to short-circuit. He could already see the future unfolding without him. It wouldn't be long before his constant presence in Tate's life would become inconvenient, then awkward, and eventually impossible to explain. Tate's wife would inevitably wonder why another man was always around, why Noah lingered in a house that was no longer his home. The place Noah had occupied beside Tate for so many years would quietly disappear. He would no longer fall asleep beside the person who had been the center of his world since childhood. Instead, he would sleep alone while Tate fulfilled the role generations of the Blue family had prepared him for, marrying, breeding, fucking, impregnating, and carrying the family's legacy into another generation. For the first time, Noah realized that he hadn't simply been afraid of losing Tate's affection. He was afraid of losing the ordinary life they'd built together, one quiet night at a time. Noah's worst nightmare seemed to take shape in that single sentence. He drew in a sharp breath, chest tight, panic flickering behind his eyes as he searched Tate's face for any sign it wasn't real, any hint this was something they could outrun. "Having a wife would ruin my sleep," Tate growled, his voice low with frustration. "It would destroy our perfect nighttime arrangement." His hand clenched the bedsheets as he fought to make sense of the thought. It wasn't the woman herself he was angry with. It was what she represented, the end of the quiet routine he and Noah had shared for years. Noah stiffened, unsure how to respond, but Tate hardly noticed. His thoughts were racing too fast, consumed by the idea of losing something he had always taken for granted. "I already found the perfect little bed warmer," Tate muttered with a bitter laugh. "He doesn't steal the blankets, he doesn't toss and turn, we both get a good night's sleep." Tate shook his head. "I wouldn't trade that just because everyone expects me to have a beautiful wife. They can call me selfish if they want, but I'm not giving up the one routine that's always made home feel like home." The words dripped with possessiveness, his hand fisting the sheets beside Noah's head to anchor himself. Noah's skinny body tensed beneath him, narrow hips shifting slightly, but Tate didn't notice. His mind was a whirlwind of jealousy, not just at the faceless girl, but at the very idea of anything pulling him away from this, from Noah's warmth curled against him every night. "I refuse to marry her," Tate continued, his scowl twisting into something fiercer, lips curling back as if the words tasted bitter. "Because I want you in my bed instead of a cold pussy." The confession hung raw in the air, Tate's breath ghosting over Noah's cheek, their mouths separated by a mere centimeter, close enough for Noah to feel the faint tremor in Tate's exhale, but Tate held back, denying the pull. Jealousy burned hotter now, imagining that stranger's body invading their space, her presence a barrier between him and Noah's lean form. I don't want kids and I can't have them due to my vasectomy, not like this, not when it means losing what we have. Tate's voice cracked on the last part, his free hand gripping Noah's shoulder, Prince digging into the thin muscle there, holding him in place as if Noah might vanish. Noah's heart pounded, his narrow chest rising and falling rapidly under Tate's bulk, but he stayed silent, eyes flicking away as a flush crept up his neck. Tate's proximity stirred something deep in him, lust that Noah buried quickly, shifting his hips to hide the growing hardness in his pants. Noah would have given anything, everything he was, for the chance to build a life with Tate, to be chosen in return instead of hidden away. To belong beside him openly, not in shadows or silence, but as someone accepted within the Blue family, someone who didn't have to question where he stood when morning came. He dreamed of simple things that felt impossibly distant. Tate introduced him as his partner, his special person, even just a +1 at his side. He would have traded everything for that kind of certainty, for a defined, undeniable place in Tate's life that no one could question or take away. When Noah was younger, he used to dream that one day Tate would notice what had always been in front of him. He imagined Tate introducing him, not as a childhood friend or a familiar face who had simply never left, but as the person he had chosen above everyone else. In those impossible daydreams, Noah stood beside Tate with pride instead of uncertainty, treated with the respect and honor reserved for a lifelong partner. He wanted the world to know he was more than the boy who shared Tate's room, more than the quiet companion who was always there when everyone else had gone home. But dreams had a way of yielding to reality. Tate had never been anything but straight. Noah had accepted that truth years ago. The fantasies that had once filled his heart had slowly faded, replaced by something quieter, a deep, unwavering affection that no longer expected to be returned. Loving Tate had become less about hopping for a different future and more about appreciating the life they already shared, even if it would never be the one Noah had once imagined. Tate remained oblivious, too consumed by the rage boiling inside, jealous of the family legacy that demanded he breed and build a life apart from the one he'd carved with Noah. The Blues expected heirs, children from wives chosen for their fertility, but Tate saw only chains, only the cold emptiness of a bed without Noah's skinny limbs draped over his. "Let's go for a drive," Tate said abruptly, pulling back just enough to haul Noah up by the arm, his grip firm but not bruising. Noah stumbled to his feet, legs wobbly from the earlier pin, as Tate marched him out to the driveway. The Blue Merced's convertible gleamed under the lights, top down, inviting the night air. Tate shoved Noah into the passenger seat with a rough push, the leather creaking under his slight weight. Noah's hand shot to the door handle immediately, fingers fumbling to escape the intensity, but Tate was faster, lunging over, his chest slamming into Noah's back as he yanked the seatbelt free. The strap whipped across Noah's torso like a restraint, gently choking him back against the seat and straight into Tate's solid chest. Noah gasped, his narrow frame jolting, hands pressing against Tate's pecs in a weak attempt to create space. The contact sent a spark through Noah, romantic, electric, the way Tate's body enveloped him, protective and unyielding. Tate's arms stretched across Noah's lap, muscles flexing as he dragged the belt low over Noah's hips, the buckle clicking into place with a decisive snap. Noah's breath caught, his boner twitching harder beneath the fabric, hidden by the way he crossed his legs, thighs squeezing together. To Noah this moment stretched intimate, Tate's hand lingering a second too long on the clasp, his breath warm against Noah's neck, oblivious to the lust it ignited, seeing only the need to keep Noah secured close. Tate pulled back, slamming his own door and revving the engine with a growl that matched his mood. The car peeled out of the driveway, wind whipping through their hair as they tore into the town streets. Tate's hands gripped the wheel white-knuckled, eyes scanning the passing sights, manicured lawns, grand houses with picket fences that screamed domesticity, the kind his father envisioned for him. Each one fueled the jealousy simmering in his veins, visions of that future wife nesting in one of these, breeding while Noah slipped away. "Look at them," Tate muttered, voice tight, gesturing at a lit-up colonial with kids' bikes on the porch. "Perfect little families, that's what they want for me trapped in some house, filling her up with kids night after night." Noah shifted in his seat, the seatbelt a constant reminder of Tate's control, his hidden erection throbbing with every bump in the road. He stole glances at Tate's profile, strong jaw set, eyes dark with envy not of the houses but of the life they represented, one that would steal Tate from him. Tate accelerated past a park where couples strolled hand in hand and his scowl deepened. "I'd rather burn it all down than let that happen. You're mine to hold at night, not some air-making machine. I escaped being a breeding machine once because I'm a boy, so there's no way in hell I'm submitting to the hetero ideal of boredom a second time." The words spilled out laced with bitter jealousy, Tate's foot pressing the gas harder, the engine roaring as they sped by more sights, a boutique-lined street, a quiet suburb with glowing windows. Each landmark twisted the knife, reminders of normalcy Tate rejected for Noah's sake. They circled the town square, the fountain spraying under streetlights, and Tate slowed, his gaze flicking to Noah. "See that cafe? We'd go there sometimes, just us. No wives, no kids, no conformity, just you keeping me warm without unwanted expectations or duties." Jealousy edged his tone, imagining intruders in those memories, his hand twitching on the gear shift as if to hold tighter. Noah nodded faintly, heart racing from the proximity, the wind tousling his blonde hair while Tate drove on, oblivious to the romantic haze clouding Noah's thoughts, the seatbelt's click echoing like a promise in his mind. Tate's possessiveness wrapped around them like the night air, jealous of any world that dared pull them apart, the drive stretching into a silent claim on their shared solitude. "I have no intention of breeding more unfortunate kids for a family that forces me to be someone I'm not. I know what I am, and it's not a guy playing husband with a glass house and a generic wife." Noah sat rigid in the passenger seat for most of the drive, staring out the window without really seeing anything. The silence between him and Tate wasn't calm, it was held together by tension, like one wrong word would snap it again. His hands stayed folded in his lap, thumbs pressing into each other in small, repetitive motions that didn't quite settle anything inside him. Tate sped through the streets swearing until a green ranch-style house came into view. It didn't look like anything that belonged in Tate's world, but it caught Noah's eye immediately. It sat low and wide, slightly set back from the road, surrounded by older trees and uneven light spilling through branches. It wasn't polished, it wasn't curated, it didn't have the sharp edges of wealth or status. It looked lived in or waiting to be lived in again. Noah leaned forward without thinking. "Stop the car," he said immediately. Tate glanced at him, confused. "What?" "Stop," Noah repeated, sharper now, "just pull over." After a moment, Tate did. The car rolled to a stop along the shoulder, engine still idling. Noah was already looking out the windshield, fixed on the house now. A small, weathered for sale sign stood in the front yard, slightly tilted like it had been there longer than anyone bothered to straighten. Noah's breathing changed subtly, slow, focused. "I want to see it," he said. Tate frowned. "No, it's just a house." But Noah was already opening the door. The air outside was different, cooler, quieter, the kind of stillness that didn't feel empty, just undisturbed. He crossed the yard without waiting for permission, eyes scanning the structure as he got closer. The paint was faded in places, but the shape of it was solid, familiar in a way he didn't fully understand yet. Tate followed a few steps behind, still watching him like he was trying to understand what had shifted. At the front door, Tate hesitated briefly, then produced a small key, older, worn, almost out of place against everything else. He unlocked it without ceremony. The door creaked open. Noah stepped inside first. The interior wasn't grand. It wasn't impressive in the way people expected houses to be when they cost money or carried meaning. Instead, it felt open, airy, rooms connected in a way that made sense without trying to impress anyone. Light filtered in through slightly dusty windows, catching on old wood floors and empty walls. Noah moved slowly through it. Living room, hallway, kitchen, a glance into multiple rooms branching off in quiet symmetry. Each space felt like a possibility instead of an expectation. Tate stayed near the doorway, watching him. Noah paused in the center of the house, turning slightly as if trying to take it all in at once. "It's quiet," he said finally. Tate didn't answer immediately. Noah walked further in, hand brushing lightly along a doorway frame as if testing whether it was real. Then he looked back. And for the first time since getting in the car, something in his expression softened, not into relief exactly, but recognition. "I like it," Noah said quietly. The words hung in the space between them, simple but absolute, and the house, empty as it was, suddenly didn't feel empty at all. Tate stood near the entryway, still and watchful as Noah moved further into the house. The shift in Noah was subtle but unmistakable. Whatever tension had been coiled tightly in him earlier, whatever conflict they had been carrying in the car, seemed to loosen here in this space. Noah wasn't performing anymore, wasn't bracing for impact. He was just looking, taking it in room by room, like he was trying to understand what the house could be instead of what it was supposed to represent. Tate noticed the change in him more than the house itself. Noah paused in a small room off the hallway, turning slowly in place. The light through the window caught in his hair, softening his expression in a way Tate hadn't seen since before everything had cracked open. Noah ran his eyes along the empty walls, the simple layout, the worn but solid wood underfoot. There was no luxury here in the way Tate's world usually defined it. No polish, no excess, just structure, space, quiet, and Noah looked calmer. Tate's gaze lingered. "You really like this 1960s Rambler house?" he asked again, quieter this time, like he was confirming something he wasn't fully prepared to accept. Noah turned back toward him. There was no hesitation now, no ambiguity. He nodded once firm, that was all it took. Tate exhaled through his nose slower than before. Something in his expression shifted, not softening exactly but recalibrating, like the answer had locked something into place that had been unsettled for a long time. His eyes drifted again across the house, the open layout, the separate rooms, the way it felt removed from everything else they had been circling for hours. Noah walked back into the main living area, glancing toward the kitchen, then the adjoining hallway, like he was mapping it in his head without meaning to. There was something almost careful in the way he moved now, but it wasn't fear. It was curiosity, possibility. Tate watched him for another long moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. No announcement, no hesitation, just action. Noah noticed immediately. "Tate," he said, sharper now, "what are you doing?" Tate didn't look up right away. He turned slightly away, already dialing, already listening to the line connect. His voice, when he spoke, was steady and controlled in a way that contrasted sharply with everything earlier in the kitchen. "It's me," he said into the phone. A pause. "I want to put in an offer on the Green Rambler property on West 122nd Street. Noah's brows pulled together. "You can't just..." "Tate, slow down, we just walked in here." Tate held up a hand slightly, not dismissive, just signaling a pause as he listened. His attention stayed on the call for a few more seconds, confirming details, speaking in short, clipped phrases that suggested he already knew what he wanted before he ever stepped inside. Noah stood a few feet away, still watching him, uncertainty creeping back into his posture. When Tate finally ended the call, the silence returned instantly. He turned back to Noah. "I bought it," he said. "No theatrics, no build-up, just certainty." Noah blinked. "You didn't even..." "Tate, you didn't ask me anything, you just called someone." Tate's expression didn't change much, but his eyes stayed locked on Noah, steady and unblinking. "I did," he said simply. "If you like it, then it's done." Noah looked around the house again, slower this time, like the meaning of the space had shifted again under his feet. "This isn't how it works," Noah said carefully. "You don't just decide something like this in 5 minutes." Tate took a step further into the room now, closing the distance slightly, not aggressive but present, grounded. "I do when it matters," he said. Noah's jaw tightened. "You don't even know if I'm staying." That landed differently. A pause followed it. Tate's gaze sharpened just slightly, but his voice stayed controlled. "Then stay," he said. The simplicity of it contrasted with everything else that had happened between them. Noah didn't answer immediately. His eyes moved slowly around the room again, the light, the layout, the quiet that didn't demand anything from him. Something in his expression shifted again, but not into certainty. Not yet. Tate watched him carefully now, as if the answer mattered more than the house ever could. And for the first time since they arrived, the silence between them didn't feel like tension. It felt like a threshold. Tate didn't move for a moment after saying it. The words just settled into the quiet house like they needed space to land properly. "It's yours," he repeated more softly, as if clarifying it wasn't a negotiation. "I'll put it in your name, the deed, everything. If you go, it's still yours. If you stay, it's still yours." Noah stared at him, uncertain how to respond to something that final and that irreversible at the same time. Tate's gaze didn't waver, not as intense as before, not angry, not panicked, just steady in a way that felt deliberate. "I'm not doing this to trap you," he added after a beat, almost quieter now. "I know what it probably looks like." Noah's voice came carefully. "Then why are you doing it?" Tate exhaled slowly through his nose, eyes briefly drifting around the house again, like he was trying to ground himself in something that wasn't just the conversation between them. "Because you liked it the second you saw it from the road, especially when you walked through the rooms," he said simply. "And I don't think you've looked at anything like that in a long time." That made Noah pause. Tate stepped a little further into the room, not closing the distance aggressively, just reducing the space enough to make his presence felt without forcing anything. "I've watched you all day," Tate continued. "In the car, in here, you stopped holding yourself the same way you were earlier. That matters." Noah's expression tightened slightly. "Tate." "I know," Tate said, cutting in gently this time. "I know everything today has been too much." A beat, then quieter. But I'm not trying to win anything right now. Noah looked at him more directly at that. Tate's jaw tightened faintly like he was choosing his next words carefully. I just don't want you making decisions from anger or pressure or whatever you think you're supposed to do, he said. If you want this place, I want you to have it, even if it's without me in it. The last part came out slower, more honest than strategic. Silence followed again, but it wasn't sharp this time. It was heavy, thoughtful. Noah looked away first, toward the open hallway, then the kitchen, then back to the living room, like he was trying to feel out what yours even meant in a place that had suddenly been assigned to him. Tate stayed where he was. I hope you choose to stay, he said finally, softer now, almost like it wasn't something he expected to control. Not because of me, because you want to. And for the first time since they walked into the house, Tate wasn't pushing forward. He was waiting. Tate stayed where he was for a moment longer, as if the silence itself needed time to settle into something stable. Then, quieter, so much quieter it almost didn't feel like part of the same conversation, he spoke again. When you're ready, Tate whispered, eyes still on the house, not fully on Noah now, like the words were easier to say without direct contact. Tell me if I get a drawer. Noah blinked at him. Tate exhaled slowly, shifting his weight slightly, one hand resting loosely at his side. The intensity from earlier had dulled into something more restrained but still present beneath the surface. A drawer, Tate repeated, then corrected himself faintly like he was thinking it through as he spoke. Or a cabinet, a small one, a cranny somewhere. Noah stared at him a little longer, unsure if he was supposed to laugh or take it seriously or understand something deeper hidden in it. Tate finally looked at him then, not demanding, not assuming, just waiting. I don't have to live here, but I'd like to if that's okay if you stay here, Tate added quickly, almost softer, as if clarifying before Noah could misinterpret it. I just mean, if you end up here, if this becomes your place, I want to know where I fit in it. The phrasing hung between them. I'm not asking for ownership, he said, voice steady but lower now. I already told you it's yours. A pause, then more quietly. I just don't want to be outside of it completely. Noah's gaze flicked around the house again, slower this time, less like exploration and more like reflection, like the idea of home had suddenly gained too many layers to sort through quickly. Tate didn't move closer, didn't push. He stayed where he was, hands relaxed, posture still tense but no longer forward driving. I know today was a lot, Tate said after a moment. I know I was a lot. His jaw tightened briefly, like admitting it cost him something. But I mean this part clearly, he added. I don't want to take anything from you, I just want to know if there's space for me that doesn't erase you. Silence followed again, but it wasn't sharp anymore. It was uncertain, measured. Noah looked at him for a long time without speaking, then glanced toward the empty hallway of the house again, like he was imagining what filling it would even look like. Tate didn't interrupt, he just waited. 3 weeks later, Noah moved into the Green Rambler. The moment he stepped through the front door, he knew it was the one. From the outside, it looked modest, almost understated, hidden behind neatly trimmed shrubs and a welcoming front porch. But once inside, the house opened into a surprisingly spacious interior. It held 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a comfortable living room, a formal dining room, a bright kitchen, a welcoming entryway, an attic, a basement, a wide patio, and 2 storage sheds tucked behind the property. At nearly 4,000 square feet, it was far larger than anyone would have guessed from the street. The previous owners had remodeled much of the home over the years. Walls had been opened to create a more inviting floor plan, large bay windows had been added to fill the rooms with natural light, and thoughtful improvements made the entire house feel warm instead of extravagant. Every room flowed naturally into the next, giving the Rambler a quiet elegance Noah immediately appreciated. There wasn't a swimming pool in the backyard, but Noah couldn't have cared less. The kitchen alone had won him over. It was everything he had imagined while searching for a place of his own: generous counter space, sturdy cabinets, modern appliances, and enough room to cook for a house full of people. He could already picture holiday dinners, friends gathered around the island talking over one another, and the smell of fresh bread drifting through the house. For the first time in years, the place truly felt like it belonged to him. Of course, it didn't stay empty for long. Tate never officially moved in, but somehow he was always there. Most evenings, the front door would quietly open, and Tate would stroll inside as though the house had been built with him in mind. He never needed a key. Noah always seemed to know when he was coming, and the door was almost always unlocked before sunset. If Tate helped himself to something from the refrigerator or borrowed anything around the house, he quietly left cash on the kitchen table before the end of the week. Noah had told him countless times it wasn't necessary, but Tate refused to let Noah shoulder the expense of feeding him. Whenever they went out, Tate usually insisted on paying. He'd take Noah to elegant restaurants that Noah never would have chosen for himself, brushing aside every protest with a wave of his hand. To anyone watching, they might have looked like they were on a date. They weren't. They were simply two childhood companions who had never outgrown each other's company, sharing dinners, laughter, and the easy familiarity that had defined their lives since they were boys. It was the happiest 12 months of their lives. Looking back, Noah often thought of that year as the Pax Romana of their story, a rare season of peace untouched by the storms that had come before or the heartbreak that would follow. For 12 precious months, life seemed almost impossibly kind. There were no great arguments, no misunderstandings waiting around the corner, no looming tragedies threatening to tear them apart. There were only quiet mornings, shared dinners, movie nights, laughter echoing through the Green Rambler, and the simple comfort of knowing the other person would be there tomorrow. Tate had never seemed more at ease. Neither had Noah. They settled into an effortless rhythm that made each day feel familiar and safe. The house became more than a place to live. It became a sanctuary where the outside world faded away the moment the front door closed. If happiness had a physical address, Noah sometimes thought it would have been that little Green Rambler. It wasn't a life filled with excitement or grand adventure. It was something better. It was peaceful. For one beautiful year, they lived as though heaven had quietly borrowed a corner of the earth and let them stay there for a while. If it were even possible, Tate became more physically affectionate with Noah. Whenever they were together, he instinctively closed the distance between them. Noah would find himself leaning against Tate's shoulder on the couch, tucked comfortably beneath Tate's arm, or sitting close enough that their knees brushed without either of them thinking twice about it. It had become second nature over the years. Movie nights were still a tradition. And although they were well into adulthood, every so often one of them would challenge the other to a wrestling match on the living room floor. The outcome never changed. Tate won every single time, usually by making Noah laugh so hard that he surrendered before the contest was even over. In many ways, nothing had changed. Their relationship remained exactly as it had always been, comfortable, familiar, and effortlessly close. Noah no longer expected it to become anything else. Years earlier, he had let go of the quiet hope that Tate might someday return his feelings. Tate was straight and Noah had made peace with that reality. Their relationship, remarkable as it was enough. From time to time, Noah went on a date, hoping that perhaps someone else might capture his heart, but nothing ever developed into a lasting relationship. No matter how pleasant the evening or how kind the person, it always seemed to end the same way. No one ever felt quite at home. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Every other Sunday, the family gathered for dinner at the house where Noah and Tate had grown up. Sometimes they arrived together, other times their schedules brought them separately, but somehow they always ended up sitting beside each other before the meal was over. The old house hadn't changed much. The familiar smells drifted from the kitchen, the dining room filled with the same conversations it always had, and for a few hours it felt as though time had stood still. Not everyone made it home very often. Tim's work kept him constantly traveling, and Uncle Joey was even harder to catch. He was usually somewhere in Europe or down in Texas, consumed by one project after another. Family dinners had become a rare luxury for him. Noah realized with a pang of sadness that he hadn't seen Uncle Joey in over a year. He missed him. Joey had always had a way of making every room brighter the moment he walked through the door, filling the house with stories, laughter, and the effortless warmth that made everyone feel welcome. His absence left an emptiness that no one else quite managed to fill. Tate's mom, seated at the small wooden table at the Blue Mansion with a mug of tea steaming between her hands, looked up and smiled. "Well, look at you, Noah, you're glowing. How have you been keeping yourself?" Noah shrugged, a modest lift of his shoulders, but there was no hiding the quiet pride in his eyes. Better, really better, I feel normal. She tilted her head, studying him carefully. Normal can feel strange after what you went through. Are you happy? Noah hesitated, then let a small, honest smile slip across his face. Yes, I'm happy, and I've learned a lot about myself along the way. Her smile softened, the lines around her eyes deepening. Good, that's what I wanted to hear. And have you been eating enough? Noah laughed lightly, a sound he hadn't realized he'd missed making, and nodded. Yes, more than enough actually. I'm taking care of myself now. She reached across the table and gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. That's all any of us can hope for, Noah. You've come a long way. Noah let himself absorb the warmth of her kitchen, her care, the normalcy he'd fought so hard to find. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel the gnawing hunger, not for food, not for approval, not for control. He just felt full. Talia picked the spoon back up, giving me space without pulling away. And you're still here, she said simply. That counts for more than you know. At dinner, Tate raised an eyebrow across the table, clearly trying to hide a smirk. Tate, what in the world are you doing with your food? Terrence asked, leaning in like the plate might suddenly argue back. Tate didn't even look up properly. He just shrugged, casual as anything, stabbing a piece of roasted turkey that had way too much lemon juice on it. Experimenting, Tate said, culinary innovation. Talia blinked at him, lemon on turkey. Absolutely, Tate replied like it was obvious, brings out the flavor. I sat beside him, watching the whole thing unfold, trying not to laugh because it was so ridiculous it almost worked. Almost. Then I noticed the cheesecake, or what he had done to it. Ketchup, a thick red layer spread over the slice as it belonged there. I stared at it for a second too long. Tate, I whispered under my breath, nudging his side seriously. He finally glanced at me, like I was the one being strange. What? It's delicious, he said, and took another bite like he was proving a point. Talia leaned in slightly, trying not to laugh but failing. And the ketchup on cheesecake, he asked slowly. Tate didn't hesitate. Trust me, he said, grinning now, it's an acquired taste, only the adventurous understand. I shook my head, covering my mouth as I laughed quietly. You're ridiculous, I said. And you love it, he shot back immediately, nudging my side like it was the most natural thing in the world. I rolled my eyes, but I didn't move away. Around the table people were staring, some whispering, some are just confused, but Tate didn't seem to care at all. And somehow, sitting there next to him with the noise of family and plates and conversation around us, it almost felt normal, almost like none of the other nights existed at all. Noah loved living in the Green Rambler house, but by July of 1992, his emotional needs were quietly going unmet, just like for the past 16 years, long before Emily ever darkened the blue house. Even after Tate moved into the home Noah owned, something fragile between them had already begun to splinter. A year after moving into his new home, the cracks were no longer subtle. They showed in the silence, in the way they moved around each other, in the absence of warmth. Others could feel the moment they stepped inside. Susie mentioned it once, dropping off groceries just before Christmas, the coldness, the distance. We were living separate lives under the same roof. Tate tried in the ways he knew how, but I was already running on empty. The expensive things he gave me weren't love, they were glue, temporary fixes pressed over something deeper, like a bandage on a wound that never really healed. It became harder to put effort into something that hurt in ways that didn't always have words. It was like pressing a finger into a bruise you already know is there. After a while you just stop doing it, not because it doesn't matter, but because it does. And the truth was, I wasn't the one carrying the relationship in the first place. Tate was. He always had been, in his own way, through presence, through routine, through the assumption that we would just keep existing alongside each other no matter what changed internally. From the outside, it probably looked like we had something steady, something unshakable, like we were coasting through life together in a way that didn't require explanation. But if I tried to picture how long that could realistically last, how long we could keep moving like that without something breaking or shifting, it didn't feel infinite. It felt delayed, like something I would still be sitting inside long after I stopped believing it could stay the same. Sometimes I even thought, half bitter and half honest with myself, that I'd be collecting Social Security before anything in that dynamic actually changed on its own because Tate was in charge of our relationship, And if he was happy, who cared about my feelings? And that thought didn't make me laugh, it just made everything feel even more suspended, like time was moving but we weren't quite moving with it in the same way anymore. When Tate walked into the house last night, it was quiet in that careful way Noah had perfected. The lamp was on, a book is open on the table, Noah was there but already half gone. "Hey," Tate said. Noah looked up, polite, guarded, the same neutral expression that had been haunting him all week. "Hey." The word hit like a bruise. Tate stood there, heart pounding, searching Noah's face for anything familiar: warmth, irritation, affection, even anger. Anything that meant he still registered. "I just came from my board meeting," Tate said, voice rough. "I needed to see you." Noah nodded, noncommittal. "Okay." That was it, no step closer, no question, no softness. Tate stood in the middle of the room for a second after the last sound of Noah's footsteps faded upstairs. The words were still hanging in the air, unfinished but heavy enough to feel final anyway. "What's going on between us?" Tate had asked, his voice lower now, less certain than it had been moments before. Noah looked up at him, confused at first, like he genuinely didn't understand the direction the conversation was taking. "What are you talking about?" Noah replied. Tate's expression tightened. "Our relationship has been dying since we were older teenagers," he said, the words coming out sharper than he intended. "You don't want to be around me, I don't think you even want to be here." Noah stared at him for a moment, blinking slowly, like he was trying to decide whether to engage or not. Tate pushed forward anyway, voice quieter but more direct now. "Is there anything you want to tell me?" A pause. Noah didn't answer, not in a way that gave Tate anything to hold onto. He just exhaled, something small and unreadable passing over his face, and then turned away. Noah walked toward the stairs. Tate watched him go, waiting, maybe for him to stop, maybe for him to say something back, maybe for anything that would make the moment feel less like a breaking point. But Noah didn't look back. The stairs creaked once, then again, until the sound disappeared upstairs completely. And then the door shut. Tate stayed where he was, staring at the empty space Noah had just left behind, as if the answer he was looking for might still be somewhere in the silence. The next morning, the house felt different the moment Tate woke up. Not loud, not dramatic, just cold in a way neither of them said out loud. Noah was already up, moving through the kitchen quietly, doing things with deliberate efficiency: cupboard doors, kettle, a mug set down a little too carefully. He didn't look toward Tate when he entered the room. "Morning," Tate said anyway, trying to keep his tone light. No response. Tate lingered near the counter, watching him for a second. "You didn't sleep much," he tried again. Noah poured his drink, still not looking up. "I slept fine." Short, flat, controlled. Tate exhaled slowly, like he was trying not to react too strongly too early in the day. "Okay," he said carefully, "we're still doing this." Noah finally glanced at him briefly. "Doing what?" he asked, already knowing. Tate stepped a little closer. "This," he said, "whatever happened last night, you're going upstairs like I wasn't even talking. You are shutting me out." Noah set the mug down. "I'm not shutting you out," he said, but there was no warmth in it, just distance. A pause stretched between them. Tate lowered his voice. "Then talk to me," he said. "Please, just don't do this thing where you disappear and act as if nothing matters." Noah's jaw tightened slightly, the only real sign he'd heard the weight of it. "I don't want to argue in the morning," he said. "That's not an argument," Tate replied, frustration breaking through now. "That's me trying to understand what's happening to us." Noah finally looked at him properly for a second, but his expression didn't soften, it didn't close the distance either. "I'm going out," Noah said instead. Tate blinked. "Out where?" "Shopping," Noah replied simply. And that was it. Noah grabbed his keys, his jacket, moved past Tate without brushing him, and headed toward the door. Tate followed a step, then stopped himself. "Noah," he called after him, voice tighter now, "just talk to me for 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." Noah paused at the door, hand on the handle. For a moment, Tate thought he might turn around. He didn't. The door opened, then closed, and the silence left behind felt even colder than before. A few hours before Tate went to visit his mother, the house was already tense again. Noah was moving toward the stairs when Tate spoke from behind him. "Noah, wait." Noah didn't stop at first, but Tate stepped closer, trying to catch his attention. "Why won't you talk to me?" Tate asked, voice tight now. "Why are you shutting me out?" Noah paused on the bottom step, hand resting lightly on the railing. Tate's voice lowered, frustration breaking through the restraint he'd been trying to hold onto. "What did I do?" he asked. "What changed that makes you treat me like this?" Noah finally turned slightly, just enough to look at him. His expression wasn't angry, it was tired. "I'm not doing anything to you," Noah said quietly. "That's not what it feels like," Tate replied immediately. A beat of silence stretched between them. Noah exhaled through his nose like he was trying to decide how much to say and decided against most of it. "I don't want to do this right now," he said instead. Tate took a step forward, softer now, almost pleading. "Then when?" he asked, "because every time I try you leave the conversation." Noah held his gaze for a second longer, then he turned away again. He started up the stairs. Tate stayed where he was, watching him go. "Noah," he said one last time, quieter now. But Noah didn't turn back. His bedroom door closed upstairs, leaving Tate alone in the hallway, staring at the space where the conversation had fallen apart again. 20 minutes later, Noah came back downstairs. The house was quieter now, the earlier tension still sitting in the walls like something unresolved. He moved into the kitchen without looking around much, already reaching for the kettle, moving through the motions of making tea like it was something he could do without thinking. Tate came down shortly after, slower, watching him carefully from the doorway. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the kettle clicking on. Then the phone rang. It cut through the silence sharply. Tate started toward it automatically, but Noah got there first, picking it up before Tate could reach it. "Hello," Noah said. There was a brief pause on the other end, then his tone shifted slightly, not dramatically but enough for Tate to notice. Something in him eased, not excitement exactly but familiarity, ease. "Hey Mark," Noah said. Tate stopped moving. He didn't interrupt. He just stood there, watching. Noah turned slightly away as he listened, one hand resting on the counter, posture loosening in a way it hadn't been all morning. His expression wasn't tense anymore. It was steadily focused in a different direction now. Tate stayed quiet. Noah spoke a few more times, brief replies, small confirmations, nothing dramatic, just planning, coordinating. At one point he glanced toward the window as he listened, nodding slightly. "Yeah," Noah said, "I'm just going to finish a few things here, then I'll head out." Another pause. "Later this afternoon," he added, "that works." Tate didn't move. Noah's tone stayed calm, neutral, like he was organizing a normal day, not stepping out of something heavy. A few more short exchanges followed, and then the call wrapped up. "All right," Noah said finally, "I'll see you then." He hung up. For a second he just stood there, phone still in his hand. Then he set it down, picked up his tea, and grabbed his keys from the counter. Tate finally spoke. "Where are you going?" he asked, voice quieter than before. Noah paused briefly. "Shopping," he said simply. Tate hesitated. "You're just leaving." No accusation, just confusion. Noah looked at him, then steady, composed. "I told you I was going out," he replied. Tate opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, but nothing came out cleanly enough. Noah held his gaze for a moment longer, then turned toward the door. "Lock up when you leave," he said, almost automatically, like it was just part of the routine. And then he was gone. The door shut behind him, leaving Tate in the kitchen with the kettle still warm, the house suddenly feeling even emptier than it had before. On Saturday, Tate went to visit his mom and Susie at his childhood home. I didn't go with him. I told myself it was because I had things to do, or because I needed space, or because it just didn't matter either way. But the truth underneath all of that was simpler. I didn't really want to spend the day around him right then. I was avoiding him in the quiet way I had gotten good at, the kind that didn't require an argument or a clear decision. And Tate didn't say anything about it, not once. No questions, no pushback, no attempt to pull me into coming along anyway. He just accepted it in that way he sometimes did, like he was registering the distance without nomming it. Tate stepped inside and closed the door behind him, letting the noise of the outside fade completely. For a moment, he just stood there, taking in the house as it was now, different from how it had been when he was younger, but still carrying the same weight of memory in its walls. Talia looked up first. Susie's voice followed a second later. And Tate, still carrying everything from the morning that hadn't been spoken about, moved further inside like he was trying to decide which version of himself he was supposed to be here. The only time Tate and I ever really seemed to be cordial with each other was during Sunday dinners. It was like we both slipped into something rehearsed without ever agreeing on the script. We acted like everything was okay, like whatever distance or tension existed the rest of the week didn't follow us into that room. Conversation flowed. Timing felt normal. Even laughter sometimes showed up in the right places. Tate sat down on the couch, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, trying to look like he was fine, like everything was normal, like he belonged in the version of the room everyone else was pretending to be in. Susie and Talia exchanged a glance almost immediately. It was subtle but loaded. The kind of look that said they both felt it, the pressure in the room, the sense that something underneath the surface was building, waiting, like watching a mountain that hadn't erupted in years and knowing somehow that it might. Tate kept talking, cordial, polite, controlled. The conversation dragged on for nearly 30 minutes, circling safe topics that didn't require anything real from him. His voice stayed steady, his posture mostly intact, but there was something strained underneath it all, something that didn't match the words coming out of his mouth. And then it broke. It wasn't loud at first, just a crack. His voice faltered mid-sentence like the words stopped cooperating, his shoulders shifted, tension collapsing inward instead of holding everything up. He looked down, blinking hard like he could stop it before it happened. He couldn't. The first tear came almost involuntarily, slipping past whatever control he'd been holding onto. Then another. And suddenly Tate, who never cried, who only ever released anything through anger or motion or force, was sitting there on the couch folding in on himself, unable to keep it contained. Susie froze. In her shock, she actually pulled back slightly, her hand lifting toward her mouth before she awkwardly set her teacup down like she didn't know what to do with herself, witnessing something she had never seen before. Talia didn't move right away either. Both of them just stared for a second, caught off guard by the sheer unfamiliarity of it. Because this wasn't the Tate as they knew him. This wasn't controlled or composed or redirected into something else. This was him breaking down quietly at first, then visibly, his breathing uneven, his posture collapsing further as whatever he had been holding in finally forced its way out. And there was nothing in the room prepared to handle it. Tate didn't just cry, he broke. The sound that came out of him wasn't controlled or quiet anymore. It was raw, loud, uneven, like something had been locked inside him for too long and finally forced its way out all at once. It filled the room in a way that made it impossible to ignore or soften. Susie sat frozen in place, completely stunned. She had never seen him like this, not even close. Tate had always been intensity, anger, control, never this kind of open, unguarded collapse. For a few long moments she didn't say anything at all, just stared, trying to process what she was witnessing. Talia moved first. She crossed the space quickly and sat beside him, pulling him in without hesitation. Tate didn't resist, he leaned into her immediately, his head falling against her chest like he didn't have the strength to hold himself up anymore. "It's awful," he choked out between breaths. "That house, it's so cold." Talia's hand came up to the back of his head, steady, grounding, letting him speak without interrupting. "It's like a tomb," Tate went on, his voice breaking. "It doesn't feel like anything anymore, it's just empty." He swallowed hard, trying to keep talking through the emotion that kept catching in his throat. "He doesn't see me," Tate said. "He's there but he's not. It's like I'm living with someone who already left." Susie's expression shifted then, shock softening into something more serious, more concerned as she listened. "There's this wall," Tate continued, his words tumbling out now, "right in the middle of everything between us, and I don't know how it got there but it's there." His breathing hitched. "And every day it gets bigger," he said, "thicker, like I can't get through it anymore, like I don't even know how to reach him." Talia tightened her arms slightly around him, her other hand moving slowly along his back. "And I don't know what to do," Tate admitted, his voice dropping into something smaller, more helpless. "I don't know how to fix it." Talia rubbed Tate's shoulders to comfort her son. "Are you sure?" Talia said carefully, her voice softer now but edged with something more direct, more probing. "That he didn't wake up one day and realize he wanted a different life and just didn't have the courage to tell you." Tate stiffened against her immediately. The words hit him harder than anything else had. "No," he said quickly, almost defensively, pulling back just enough to look at her. "No, that's not it." Talia didn't interrupt, she just watched him. Tate ran a hand through his hair, shaking his head, frustration mixing with the remnants of everything he'd just let out. "He's done this before," Tate said, his voice uneven but trying to regain control. "He pulls away, he disappears, he runs, and then he comes back." Susie frowned slightly, still quiet, still listening. "It's like we're playing some kind of game," Tate continued, the edge creeping back into his tone. "Back and forth, back and forth." He let out a short, bitter breath. "Like tennis," he muttered. "He runs, I chase, he comes back and we just pick it up again as if nothing happened." Talia's arm stayed around him, but her expression didn't soften completely. "And you're sure that's all it is?" she asked. Tate hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough to show the doubt he didn't want to admit, because underneath the frustration, underneath the anger and the pattern he was describing, there was something else sitting there, the possibility that this time might not follow the same rhythm. "You don't build a wall like that overnight for no reason," he went on, voice tight. "We didn't drift, we didn't slowly grow apart. One day we were sleeping next to each other like we always had, and the next day there was this gigantic wall, like an invisible barricade. He wouldn't let me near him, wouldn't sleep next to me, wouldn't even explain it." He swallowed. "That doesn't come from growth, that comes from something breaking." Talia chose her words carefully. "Then maybe," she said softly, "maybe something did happen, and he didn't have the language or the confidence to tell you." Tate dragged a hand over his face, trying to steady himself, but the memories were already pulling him under. "We weren't like this before," he said, quieter now, like he was talking more to himself than to them. "Before he turned 18, we were inseparable." Talia didn't interrupt. Susie didn't move. The silence stretched heavy with everything left unsaid. Susie knew about Noah's hidden truth, especially when it came to Noah's feelings for Tate, but she did not speak. To say it out loud would have been a betrayal, a breaking of trust they weren't willing to risk. So they stayed still, holding the weight of it quietly, even as it pressed harder with every passing second. "We were like," he shook his head slightly, searching for something simple enough to explain it. "Like salt and pepper, you didn't get one without the other, it just worked." His voice softened on that. And then it changed. The words came out heavier. "All at once, right before he turned 18, it was like I woke up one day and he was different." Tate's jaw tightened again, but this time it wasn't anger, it was confusion that had never really been resolved. "We had a wonderful year in his new house, then a month ago he started avoiding me," he said. "Wouldn't stay in the same room as long, wouldn't touch me the same way, wouldn't sleep next to me unless I pushed for it." He looked down at his hands. "Like he was trying to get away from me, without actually leaving." Silence filled the room again, but this time it sat more heavily. Tate let out a slow breath. "I don't think he's here because he wants to be," he admitted, voice lower now, almost hollow. "I think he's here because I don't let him go." That hung there, not loud, but final in a way that made it hard to respond to. "And that's the worst part," Tate added quietly. "Not that he might leave, but that he already has, and I'm the only one pretending he hasn't." Tate's hands curled into fists. "Something had to happen, I would have listened." Susie knew a homophobic Tate would not have taken the truth well, not then, maybe not even now. That knowledge sat heavy in her chest, shaping every word she chose and every silence she kept. "I know you believe that," Talia said gently, "but listening also means being able to hear something that changes how you see yourself, or the past." He looked at her, eyes bright with panic now. "So what are you saying, that I hurt him?" "I'm saying," she replied, steady, "that when someone puts up a wall that fast, it's usually because a boundary was crossed, or they realized one had been crossed for a long time." He shook his head. "We'd always slept together, always, that was normal for us." "Normal can still stop feeling safe," Talia said. "Especially at 18, especially when your body and sense of self catch up all at once." Silence stretched, both sighed, not knowing how to help the other understand. "So he didn't just decide to leave me," Tate said quietly. "No," she said, "he either protected himself or outgrew you, hun." The word landed like a blow. "And here's the hardest part," Talia added. "You may never know exactly what moment made the wall go up, because whatever it was, it belonged to him, and he may not be ready or ever willing to take it down just so you can understand it." Tate stared at the ground, breathing shallow. "All I know," she continued, "is that walls like that don't always mean I don't love you. They mean I can't survive this the way it is anymore." He closed his eyes. For the first time, the question shifted in his mind, not what did I do wrong, but something far more frightening, what did I never notice while it was happening? And there was no easy answer to that. I'm at my wit's end, he said quietly, and it started the day before his 18th birthday. Susie's brow creased. Started how? He was still there, Tate said, frustrated. Physically, same house, same routines, but emotionally, he shook his head. It was like he regressed, like he went inward. That morning before his 18th birthday was amazing, but after we returned from that bike ride into town, he has been a different boy ever since. Talia stayed still, listening. Noah stopped saying things, Tate went on. He used to say, I love you, not all the time. But enough that it mattered. After that birthday, Noah didn't say it anymore. Maybe he stopped feeling it and didn't want to lie. In 10 years, Noah hasn't said those words 5 times since that day. Susie glanced at Talia, then back, and then we left for Brown, Tate said, and Noah slept on his side of the dorm while I was forced to cross the room to sleep with him. The words landed flat and heavy. He didn't announce it, Tate added. He didn't explain, he just stopped coming to bed. He'd change the subject or smile and say goodnight to me. He was present, but he wasn't with me anymore. Susie swallowed. So the wall wasn't just the bed. No, Tate said, that was just the part I couldn't ignore, but the wall went up earlier right after that birthday. The bed was just where it became undeniable. Talia spoke softly. Sometimes people pull language back before they pull space back. That's exactly it, Tate said, relief flickering because someone finally named it. He took the words first, then the closeness, then, after Brown, the last pieces. Susie's voice was gentle now. Did you ask him why he stopped saying those words? Andrew watched from the shadows, reading his newspaper. His expression was unreadable as he sighed. I tried, Tate said. He'd go quiet or say he was tired or joke it away. His voice cracked. I kept thinking if I didn't push it would come back. Silence settled around them. So, when people tell me nothing happened, Tate said, exhausted, it makes me feel crazy, because something did. He didn't disappear overnight, but something inside him shut a door and I was still standing there, calling his name. No one contradicted him. They sat there in the living room drinking their tea, the truth finally laid out plainly. After his 18th birthday, Noah emotionally left all at once. He stayed physically, but he withdrew his voice, his words, and his warmth. And by the time they left for Brown, the silence had already done its work. Susie went very still. She didn't speak, didn't even shift her weight, but something in her expression changed, like a door closing softly behind her eyes. Brown, late nights. Noah is sitting on the edge of her bed, voice flat, careful, talking around things instead of through them. Susie remembered now, not a confession, not a rant, just a sentence Noah had said once, almost to himself, during Brown. After that night when Tate met Emily at the library or his phone call to invite her to my party, I couldn't pretend anymore. At the time, she hadn't asked which night. Noah said Tate fucked a girl and he saw it through the hallway door. Now the memory rearranged itself with a sickening clarity. 18th birthday, Emily, the timing, the sudden wall, the way Noah stopped sleeping beside Tate, the way his voice went quieter, more controlled, like he was rationing feeling. Susie's chest tightened. She could see it suddenly, not jealousy, not drama, something more final. The moment hope quietly evacuates a room, the instant intimacy turns from comfort into risk. Across from her, Tate was still talking, still circling the mystery aloud, unaware that the answer had just landed, heavy and unmistakable, in her lap. Andrew was listening intently to Tate's left, watching with amusement at the whole exchange. Susie kept her face neutral. She said nothing. Because some realizations don't belong to the person who hears them, and because once spoken they can't be taken back. So she sat there beside Talia, hands folded in the grass, carrying the truth silently, that Noah hadn't disappeared without cause. The wall had been built in a single night, and that Tate had never known he was standing on the other side of a future that shattered the moment Noah saw it wasn't possible anymore. Susie understood it without needing to hear it said. She knew why Noah slept elsewhere. For him, lying next to Tate had stopped being neutral the moment love stopped being mutual. The weight of Tate's arm, the familiar way he'd tuck in close, nose pressed into Noah's neck as it had always belonged there, the ease of it, how natural it was for Tate, how devastatingly loaded it was for Noah. To be touched like that by someone who didn't love you back the way you needed, to be held in a way that felt like home and loss at the same time, was something the earlier, lovesick version of Noah simply couldn't survive. Susie could see it now. Noah sleeping alone had hurt him. He hated the quiet, hated the cold space where a body used to be, hated the way nights stretched longer when there was no one breathing beside him. But the other choice, lying still while affection brushed against a wound, pretending closeness didn't reopen something raw every time that had been unbearable. So Noah chose the pain he could live with. Susie didn't say any of this out loud. Noah had told her about a secret in confidence, and it would be a shitty thing to tell a friend's secrets to other people. She just sat there, letting the truth settle in her chest that Noah hadn't withdrawn to punish Tate, hadn't locked a door out of spite or drama. Noah had moved away emotionally from Tate because staying would have meant breaking himself a little more each night. And loving someone quietly sometimes means choosing loneliness, because it hurts less than hope. I can't reach him, Tate said hoarsely. He'd stopped packing. That was how Talia knew it was bad, when the anger burned down into something heavy and immobile. That wall, he went on, staring straight ahead, it's grown even more recently when I've been too busy to notice it. I've been out with friends and one girl on a date, but when I remember the wall, it's gotten too wide, too tall. I don't even know where to start climbing anymore. Susie shifted beside Talia, saying nothing. And that's why Mark irritates me, Tate added, sharper now, the bitterness finally surfacing. Everyone thinks it's because he's loud or smug or whatever. It's not that. He laughed once, ugly and hollow. It's because Mark can get through that wall and I can't. The words sat there exposed. He talks to Noah and Noah answers, Tate said. Mark jokes with him, touches his arm, stands too close, and Noah doesn't flinch, don't pull away, don't shut down, his jaw tight. I've known Noah my whole life. I shared a bed with him for years, and now I can't even sit next to him without feeling like I'm trespassing. Talia spoke carefully. That doesn't mean Mark matters more. I know, Tate snapped, then quieter, but it feels like he gets the version of Noah I lost. Susie watched him closely. You're jealous. Yes, Tate said immediately, no denial left in him. It's jealousy. Mark doesn't have to try, it's natural for him while I'm completely left behind. Mark didn't break anything. Mark showed up after the wall was already there, so he never had to be on the wrong side of it. I've known Noah for decades, but I'm stuck on the outside looking in without anywhere to start fixing or repairing our friendship. Mark goes behind Noah's walls like it's effortless, and my inability to do it makes me jealous of their relationship. The only thing keeping Noah from running to Mark's bed is my body forcing him to stay with me. Talia sighs in the corner and begs Tate to continue. Tate dragged a hand through his hair, voice cracking in fury. Noah looks at him like someone safe, and when Noah looks at me, it's like he's remembering something he can't afford to feel anymore. Silence settled around them. I don't even think what we had before is possible, Tate said finally, exhausted. I just want access. I want to know I still exist to him on the other side of that wall. Talia said softly, and Mark's presence proves the wall isn't absolute. Yes, Tate said, which makes it worse. Because if the walls were impenetrable, I could accept my inability to be behind his walls as fate, but knowing Noah still let someone through, just not him, it's a different kind of pain, it's loss and replacement. And Tate sat there with that truth burning in his chest, finally understanding that what he called irritation was really grief mixed with envy. The unbearable sight of someone else standing where he used to be, speaking to Noah in a language Tate no longer knew how to use. Here it is with that line exactly as you want it, cleanly integrated and unchanged elsewhere. Tate's voice dropped, like saying it out loud finally cost him something. I try to touch him, he said, just small things, his arm, his shoulder, and he moves away. Susie's breath caught, but she stayed silent. He says it's nothing, Tate went on, bitterness threading through the hurt. I'm tired, I'm exhausted trying to imagine a solution to my failing friendship. Last night the door was locked. His jaw tightened. Doors don't lock themselves. I slept in my room for the first time in a year since I moved into that house. He laughed weakly, shaking his head. That tells me he's hiding or shutting me out again, or at the very least, not telling me the truth. He doesn't love me anymore, Tate said flatly, like he'd reached the end of the argument and found nothing left to defend. That's why he sleeps somewhere else. That's why he stopped saying it. Noah stopped loving me on his 18th birthday, and he hasn't the balls to tell it to my face. His hands clenched in his lap. Those words mattered, they weren't casual, and now nothing, like they were erased. Susie finally spoke softly. You think he doesn't love you? I've seen the way he looks at you, Tate. He cares about you. What else could locking the door mean? Tate shot back, then immediately deflated. You don't take away important words unless you no longer care. The home he grew up in was very quiet except for distant voices, other lives moving forward without them. I can handle him changing, Tate said, voice breaking. I can handle space. I can even handle him choosing other people to talk to, but I can't handle this being shut out and told it's nothing, being treated like I'm imagining the loss. Talia said gently, people don't always stop loving because they stop speaking it. But he stopped showing it, Tate replied, and I'm left guessing, reaching, watching him pull away and pretend he didn't. He rubbed his eyes, exhausted beyond anger now. I don't even need the words back, I just need to know I still matter in the way I used to. Talia rubbed his shoulders, trying to comfort her only child, because the truth sitting between them was too heavy to soften, that love doesn't always end loudly. Sometimes it retreats into locked doors, avoided touches, and words that become too dangerous to say. And Tate, standing on the outside of all of it, could feel the absence more clearly than any rejection, because the space where those 3 small words used to live was suddenly unmistakably empty. Tate's voice dropped to almost nothing. I begged him last night, he said. I stood outside the door and asked him to unlock it. I told him we could talk, that we could work it out. I wasn't even angry, I was just asking. Susie felt her chest tighten. He didn't answer, Tate went on, didn't tell me to go away, didn't tell me he needed space, he just ignored me like I wasn't there. He swallowed hard. That was worse than if he'd yelled. Talia's jaw clenched, but she stayed quiet. And this morning, Tate said, voice cracking, breakfast was unbearable. We were sitting at the same table inches apart. He poured coffee, passed the sugar. His mouth twisted, then his phone rang. It was Mark. Susie's eyes lit up. He answered it, Tate said, right there, talked to him like everything was normal, like nothing was wrong. He even smiled once. His hands curled into fists, still wouldn't look at me. The silence that followed felt sharp. He could talk to Mark, Tate said quietly. He could joke, he could be present, just not with me. He laughed once hollow. That's when I knew it wasn't exhaustion or timing or needing space, it was selective. Talia exhaled slowly. I could have handled a fight, Tate went on. I could have handled him telling me he was done, but being ignored while he connects with someone else, being erased while still in the room. His voice broke. That's when I knew, Tate said, staring at the ground, that wall is just between us. It's me standing outside, watching him live on the other side. Noah created that wall to keep me out because everyone else, his friends, family, and even strangers, can get through that wall, but not me. That wall has my name on it, and I'm the reason why the wall won't move. Because everyone there understood what that meant, not just distance but replacement, the particular pain of realizing someone still has warmth to give, they've just decided not to give it to you anymore. Tate said it finally, the words stripped of anger, left bare and shaking. He doesn't want me anymore, he said, and he's too cowardly to admit he stopped loving me 6 years ago. The sentence seemed to empty him out. He won't say it, Tate went on, quieter now, because saying it would make him the bad guy, so instead he locks doors, avoids my eyes, pretends everything is fine while I'm standing right there falling apart. Susie's throat tightened. Talia looked down at the grass. I've given him every opening, Tate said. I begged him last night, I stood there like an idiot asking him to let me in so we could fix it, and he couldn't even give me the decency of a no. He shook his head. That's not confusion, that's avoidance. The bitterness drained out of Tate, leaving something worse behind, acceptance edged with grief. If he'd just say it, if he'd say, I don't love you like that anymore, or let's stop being close, I could survive it, Tate said. But this, letting me chase a version of him that doesn't exist anymore, is cruel. He exhaled, long and unsteady. That's so cruel. No one rushed to correct him. No one tried to soften it, because from where Tate was standing the evidence lined up too cleanly. The wall after the birthday, the words that vanished, the bed left empty, the locked door, the easy laughter on the phone with someone else. And the worst part wasn't believing Noah had stopped loving him. It was believed that Noah had known it for years and had chosen silence instead of truth, leaving Tate to keep loving alone, long after the other side had already gone quiet. Tate cried into his mother's shoulder until the question tore itself loose from him again and again. What did I do? He sobbed. Why does Noah feel nothing for me overnight? Why can't he love me again? She held him the way she always had, rocking him slightly, letting the grief run its course without trying to fix it. When his breathing finally steadied, she kissed his temple and let him go. Tate left his parents' house later that afternoon, dropping Susie off at her home a few blocks away before heading back to the Green Rambler house. The drive was quiet. He kept replaying pieces of the day in his head, but none of them settled into anything that felt resolved. When he walked through the front door, the house was empty. Noah wasn't there yet. Tate stood in the entryway for a moment longer than he meant to, keys still in his hand, listening to the silence like it might tell him something about where everything had gone wrong or when. Then he moved through the house slowly. Kitchen, living room, hallway, nothing, so he waited. Hours passed in a way that didn't feel like time so much as absence. Tate stayed in the living room for most of it, sitting down, standing up, checking the time, sitting again. He didn't turn on the TV, he didn't really do anything. He just existed in the space, waiting for the sound of the front door that didn't come. Dinner came and went without him. Eventually he ate something alone without really tasting it. They didn't eat together anymore. That was just how it was now. No shared routine, no automatic overlap, just two separate schedules happening in the same house, occasionally crossing but never really meeting. They didn't even really watch television together anymore either. If one of them was in the living room, the other usually wasn't for long. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was just separate. And the strangest part was that they still shared the same bed, or at least they were supposed to. If you could even call it sharing anymore, because even there it felt like distance had found a way in, like one of them was always closer to sleep than the other and not in the same place emotionally, even if they were physically side by side. When Noah finally came home, it was late, well past 9. Tate heard the front door open, the familiar sound of keys, footsteps inside. Noah moved through the house without urgency, like he was simply returning to a place he lived in rather than something he shared. Tate didn't speak right away, he just listened. The shift in the house was subtle but immediate. Noah was here, but it still didn't feel like together, just coexisting in the same space again from a distance that neither of them seemed able to close anymore. Tate finally worked up the courage to ask a question that had been sitting in him for years. He stood up slowly from the edge of the couch, watching Noah move through the entryway. Noah had just come in, coat still on his shoulders, keys in hand, already halfway into his usual routine of putting things away without really stopping. He turned toward the closet, sliding the hanger into place back to Tate. The silence between them stretched for a beat too long. Tate's voice came out quieter than he expected. Noah. Noah paused but didn't turn around right away. That alone made Tate's chest tighten. Tate swallowed once, then stepped forward a little, stopping a few feet behind him. "I need to ask you something," he said. Noah finally glanced over his shoulder slightly, acknowledging him without fully turning. Tate hesitated. This wasn't anger, it wasn't an argument waiting to happen, it was something else, something more fragile. "I've been thinking about it for a long time," Tate continued, carefully choosing each word, "and I can't stop going back to it." Noah turned just enough now to face him more fully, still holding his coat in one hand. Tate's eyes stayed locked on him. "Why did it change?" he asked finally. The question hung there, not accusing, just honest. Noah didn't answer immediately. Tate pressed on gently, voice tightening with emotion. He was trying to keep control. "Us," he clarified, "what we were when we were younger, it was different, you were different with me." A pause, his gaze didn't waver. "And I've never really understood when it stopped being like that," Tate said. "Or why," Tate swallowed, "do you feel anything for me anymore?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Noah didn't answer right away. He looked down, fingers tightening on the edge of the table like he was bracing himself against something internal. "I don't want to talk tonight," Noah said finally, not unkind, just closed. Tate felt the last thread inside him strain. "See," he whispered, "that's what I mean, overnight you're just gone." Noah flinched, but he didn't reach out. "I'm tired, Tate," he said, "please." Whatever had once lived between them, whatever had made closeness easy and love viewable, had ended quietly almost 10 years ago. And Tate was the only one still arriving late, still asking questions, still knocking on a door that wasn't going to open. Tate stopped in the doorway, the words finally spilling out sharp and cracked, accusation braided tightly with grief. "It's been about 6 years since we were in sync," he said. Noah froze. "You were 17, Tate went on, voice rising despite himself. "We weren't just close, we shared everything, our fun, our time, our lives, we built whole days around each other." He took a breath, shaky. "And then 12 hours later," he laughed once, disbelieving, 6 years later we're this far apart. Noah didn't turn around. "Don't tell me nothing happened," Tate said. People don't go from what we had to this kind of distance without something breaking or a gradual change in behavior and motivation. Silence stretched on for too long. It drove Tate crazy when Noah wouldn't talk or avoid emotional discussions entirely. We talked every night, Tate continued. We slept next to each other, we knew how the other breathed in the dark, our lives overlapped so completely I didn't know where mine ended and yours began. His voice dropped. And then it was like a switch flipped and I never got told why. Noah's shoulders tightened just barely. I've been chasing the moment it changed, Tate said, quieter now, replaying it, wondering what I said wrong, what I missed, because from where I'm standing it feels like you left me in the middle of a sentence. Noah finally spoke, voice low. It wasn't 12 hours. Tate blinked. What? It wasn't overnight, Noah said. It just looks that way from where you are. Tate shook his head, hurt flashing hot again. That's easy for you to say, you were the one moving away, I was still standing where we'd always been, still living the life we shared. Noah turned then, eyes guarded, tired, and that's the problem. The words hung there, unfinished. 6 years, one night, two people remembering the same closeness, one morning how suddenly it vanished, the other knowing it loosened slowly, silently, long before either of them had the language to say goodbye. I couldn't tell Tate the truth. Not then, maybe not ever, because I knew what would happen if I did. He wouldn't understand the feelings underneath it. He wouldn't separate hurt from meaning. He'd hear the wrong thing, reach for the ugliest explanation, say something he could never take back, and once that word was spoken, whatever we still had would be gone for good. I would lose Tate completely, so I stayed quiet. I told myself it was temporary, that I just needed time, that the feelings would dull if I starved them of air, that if I didn't name them they might disappear on their own. But my birthday had already made the truth unavoidable. I realized then that Tate would never be in love with me like I was with him. Tate's voice cut through the silence again, sharper this time. Noah, just say something. Noah didn't look up, he couldn't. If he did, he'd see Tate's face, confused, frustrated, maybe even hurt, and that would make it worse. It would make him weaker. And Noah couldn't afford to be weak right now, not when everything sat balanced on the edge of his tongue. Just lie like you always do, say something easy, say something normal. But his throat felt tight, like the words had somewhere to go but refused to move. He stared at the floor instead, at the faint scuff marks near Tate's shoes, memorizing them like they were important. Anything to avoid looking at him. Noah. Closer now, Tate had stepped forward. Noah felt it more than saw it, the shift in the air, the presence, the weight of him. It used to be comforting, it used to mean safety, laughter, and home. Now it just meant pressure, expectation, the slow, suffocating feeling of being cornered. What happened to us? Tate asked again, quieter this time, but somehow worse. You don't talk to me anymore, you don't look at me, did I do something? Yes, Noah thought instantly. You existed, you smiled at me, you sat too close, laughed too easily, and made me feel like I belonged somewhere I was never supposed to. His fingers curled slightly at his sides. You made me love you. The word echoed in his head like something dangerous, forbidden. If it slipped out even by accident, everything would collapse. Tate would understand in an instant he wasn't stupid, and then it would be over, not just Tate but everything tied to him. Sunday dinners, the warmth of a house that was never really his but always felt like it could be. Tate's mother asked if he wanted seconds. His father clapped him on the shoulder as if he belonged there. Tate's aunts and uncles would vanish immediately because no one wants a gay boy in their house. Tate was an only child with a wonderful family. Noah was an orphan. He had no one, and even if Tate's parents didn't recoil, it would be too awkward to be around Terrence and Talia because any meal Noah spent with Tate's family, Tate would be there. How could he eat and digest food when someone was glaring at you, hoping you'd get AIDS and die? Gone. All of it was gone the second Tate looked at him differently. Just answer me, Tate said, frustration bleeding through now. You're acting like I'm a stranger. Because I have to, Noah thought, because if I don't, you'll see it. He could feel Tate's eyes on him, searching, trying to piece it together. Tate wasn't used to not understanding things. He pushed, always pushed, until he got what he wanted. And Noah had always given it to him. That was the problem. His chest tightened, a slow, aching pressure that made it hard to breathe. He remembered when this had started, really started, not the distance, not the silence, but the realization. The moment something shifted and refused to shift back. A look that lasted too long, a touch that lingered, The sick sinking awareness that it wasn't going away, that it wasn't normal, and worse, Tate would never see it that way, Tate who made jokes sometimes, who got quiet and uncomfortable when certain topics came up, who looked at the world in a way that had no space for something like this. Noah swallowed hard. If you tell him, he won't just leave, he thought. He'll hate or kill you. The moment Tate figured out that the person he shared a bed with for 20 years was a fag who wanted his body, Noah would be lucky to be crawling off the property. That was the part that stuck, not just losing Tate but watching that shift happen in real time, watching warmth turn into something colder, sharper, watching Tate look at him like he was something unfamiliar, something wrong. Noah, look at me. He couldn't, because if he did, he might break. Tate took another step closer, close enough now that Noah could see him in his peripheral vision, the outline of him, solid and real and right there. The same person who had built entire worlds around in his head, all of them impossible. Did I mess up? Tate asked, and there was something raw in it now. Just tell me what I did and I'll fix it. Noah's chest twisted painfully. You can't fix this. There was nothing Tate could change, nothing he could undo. The problem wasn't something Tate had done, it was something Noah was, and there was no version of that truth that didn't ruin everything. His silence stretched too long. He could feel it turning heavier, louder, filling the space between them until it said more than words ever could. Tate shifted again, restless, impatient, hurt. Why won't you talk to me? Tate demanded. Because if I do, you'll leave. Because if I do, I lose you. Because if I do, I lose everything. The answers piled up in Noah's head, frantic, desperate, but none of them made it to his mouth. They stayed trapped there, circling, suffocating him from the inside out. His nails pressed faintly into his palms. Say something, anything, lie, but even the lies felt dangerous now. Too thin, too easy to see through, and the truth was a wrecking ball, so Noah stayed still, silent, breathing just enough to keep himself steady even as everything inside him threatened to crack open. Behind him, Tate exhaled sharply, the sound edged with frustration and something close to defeat, and that hurt too, because Noah could hear it, the beginning of distance. The very thing he'd been trying to prevent. He was losing Tate anyway, and he still couldn't speak. Noah, look at me. He couldn't, because if he did, he might break. Tate took another step closer, close enough now that Noah could see him in his peripheral vision, the outline of him, solid and real and right there. The same person who had built entire worlds around in his head, all of them impossible. Did I hurt you? Tate asked, and there was something raw in it now. Just tell me what I did and I'll fix it. Noah's chest twisted painfully. You can't fix this. There was nothing Tate could change, nothing he could undo. The problem wasn't something Tate had done, it was something Noah was, and there was no version of that truth that didn't ruin everything. His silence stretched too long. He could feel it turning heavier, louder, filling the space between them until it said more than words ever could. Tate shifted again, restless, impatient, hurt. Why won't you talk to me? Tate demanded. Because if I do, you'll leave. Because if I do, I lose you. Because if I do, I lose everything. The answers piled up in Noah's head, frantic, desperate, but none of them made it to his mouth. They stayed trapped there, circling, suffocating him from the inside out. His nails pressed faintly into his palms. Say something, anything, lie, but even the lies now felt dangerous. Too thin, too easy to see through, and the truth was a wrecking ball, so Noah stayed still, silent, breathing just enough to keep himself steady even as everything inside him threatened to crack open. Behind him, Tate exhaled sharply, the sound edged with frustration and something close to defeat, and that hurt too, because Noah could hear it, the beginning of distance. The very thing he'd been trying to prevent. He was losing Tate anyway, and he still couldn't speak. Noah kept his eyes forward. He could feel it building. Tate wasn't used to this, wasn't used to being ignored, dismissed, denied. Everywhere else people turned when he spoke. They laughed when he wanted them to. They watched him without being asked. Noah had always been the same until now. Noah. Tate's voice was sharper this time, edged with something that hadn't been there before. Noah didn't react, didn't look, didn't move. The silence stretched just long enough to snap. Are you serious right now? Tate stepped in front of him, blocking his path. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Noah's gaze dropped slightly instead, slipping past Tate's shoulder like he wasn't even there. That did it. Something shifted quick, sudden. Noah saw the movement too late. Tate's hand shot out, grabbing a fistful of Noah's shirt and yanking him back. The fabric strained sharply under the force, a tearing sound slicing through the air as Noah stumbled. His heart lurched but his face stayed blank, still no eye contact, still nothing. "What is wrong with you?" Tate demanded, pulling him closer. "You don't just get to ignore me like I don't exist." Noah's thoughts scattered for a second, pulse spiking hard against his ribs. Don't react, don't say anything, just stay still. If he spoke now it would come out wrong, too much, everything at once, and then it would be over. He tried to shift back, a small instinctive movement, but Tate's grip tightened, not letting him go. "No," Tate snapped, catching it immediately. "No, you don't walk away, not this time." The torn fabric hung unevenly between them. Noah focused on that instead, on the threads pulling apart. On anything that wasn't Tate's face, wasn't the heat of his anger, wasn't the proximity that used to feel like something safe. "You think this is funny?" Tate's voice dropped lower now, rough with frustration. "You think you can just shut me out and I'll leave you alone?" Yes, Noah's chest tightened. Please just leave it alone. But Tate never did that. He never let things go unfinished or unresolved. He pushed until he understood, until he got an answer, and Noah couldn't give him one. Tate gave him a small shake, not enough to hurt but enough to demand attention. "Say something." Noah's lips parted slightly, then closed again. Nothing came out. Nothing could, because every possible word led to the same ending. Tate stared at him differently. Tate stepping back. Tate is letting go. That was the one thing Noah couldn't allow. So he stood there, held in place, silent and unyielding in the only way he could be. Tate stared at him, searching his face for something, anything. "You're really going to do this?" he asked, quieter now but no less intense. "After everything?" Noah felt that one. It slipped past the fear and landed somewhere deeper. After everything. All those years. All those moments that meant more to Noah than they were ever supposed to, and this was what it came down to. Silence, because silence was the only way to keep any of it. Tate's grip shifted slightly, loosening for just a second like he expected Noah to finally break. Noah didn't, couldn't, wouldn't. The quiet between them turned heavy again, but different now, less confused, more strained, like something was being pulled too tight, ready to snap. And still, Noah didn't look at him, didn't speak. He didn't receive anything at all. Noah thought it was over, that if he just stayed still long enough, quiet long enough, Tate would burn through the anger and let it drop. He should have known better. The second Noah shifted his weight just enough to create space, Tate moved. A hand caught the back of his shirt, then slid higher, gripping harder, dragging him backward with a force that stole the breath from his lungs. No, you don't get to walk away from me," Tate snapped, the words sharp, unraveling. "What is this? What are you doing?" Noah stumbled as he was pulled back, his balance breaking. His hands came up instinctively, not to fight but to remove, to pry Tate's grip off him, fingers pushing at his wrist, his forearm trying to create distance without really touching more than he had to. That hesitation, that unwillingness, Tate felt it, and it hit wrong. "Are you serious right now?" Tate's voice rose, incredulous, anger flashing hotter. "You won't even look at me, and now you won't even touch me either." Noah's chest tightened. He kept his head turned away, gaze fixed somewhere past Tate's shoulder, as if he just held that line, everything might still hold together. Don't engage, don't react. His hands pressed again at Tate's arms, trying to push them off, not aggressive, not forceful, just persistent, quiet resistance, like he didn't want him there, like he didn't want him. Something in Tate snapped at that. "God, you're being so damn difficult," he muttered, the words rough, frustrated, slipping out faster now. "What is this, some kind of silent treatment? You think this makes sense? You're acting." He cut himself off with a sharp exhale, grip tightening. Noah tried again to twist away, shoulders turning, body angling out of reach, but Tate followed immediately, not giving him the space, not letting the distance form. "Stop it," Tate snapped, pulling him back again. "Just stop and look at me." Noah couldn't. His hands pushed harder this time, trying to break the hold, trying to get free without escalating it further. But the more he resisted, the more uneven it became, awkward, tangled, off balance. The torn fabric shifted under Tate's grip. Noah's foot slipped, and suddenly everything tipped. The pull was too strong, the angle wrong. Noah lost his footing completely as Tate dragged him back, and the next second the ground rushed up too fast, a sharp impact. Air knocked from his chest as he hit first, Tate coming down after, momentum carrying them into a brief, messy tangle of limbs and fabric. For a second, Everything blurred, then it settled, Tate above him, close, too close. One hand still caught in Noah's collar, the other braced near his shoulder, keeping him from pulling away again. Breathing heavier now, not just anger, something else mixed in. Frustration, confusion, something almost frantic under the surface. "What is wrong with you?" Tate demanded again, but it sounded different now, less sharp, more strained. "Why are you ignoring me like this?" Noah stared past him, not at him, never at him. His chest rose and fell unevenly, breath still catching from the impact, but he didn't speak, didn't react beyond that. His hands came up again, pressing lightly at Tate's arm, his shoulder, trying to create space, trying to shift him off without fully engaging, without holding him there. That, more than anything, made it worse. Tate felt it, the lack of response, the absence of anything familiar. No pushback, no words, not even anger, just distance, just avoidance, like Noah was already somewhere else. "Say something," Tate said, lower now, the edge still there but cracking slightly. "Anything, just stop doing this." Noah's lips parted again, a reflex.